And we're live! Yay! Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and sorry for being late today. Sometimes you just wake up and need an extra hour. Today's one of those days. I've been feeling kind of exhausted in the past couple weeks. I think it might be that the quarantine schedule is getting to me, or I might be feeling a little sentimental because next week is my birthday. So I'll be turning 33 on Thursday. If you guys are curious, you can write me a message. I'll be happy to answer. And thanks so much. I always get lots of wishes from you. I know that. So next weekend, we will be doing a special birthday live stream to celebrate, me turning 33. Who would have thought? I thought it was just like yesterday I was 23, but how well. Anyway, so today I have for you guys, hey Dylan, how are you doing? Today I have for you some of the covers that I personally love and a few songs from my album. And also, I'm writing my second album, so it will be titled Obsidian. It will be very, very metal and very Ukrainian inspired, but also turned into more of an Eastern motif. So, you know how I'm inspired by Persian music, I'm inspired by Mongolian music, I'm inspired by just about everything, Korean music, like anything. So I'm going to try to put all of that together and still make it kind of into a metal track, which is one of my favorite things to do, is to turn something traditional, twisted a little bit, and still preserve the flavor in it, but add the metal track to it. So yay. So, if you guys tuned in this past Tuesday, we had an amazing electric metal violinist, Alyson Montez. She shared with us her awesome music and her unique perspective on life and career that I think will be helpful to a lot of us, and was helpful to me for sure. I felt so great after that interview. So thank you, Alyson, for joining us. If you haven't seen it, please go back and rewatch it, right? The links are below. You can find us by Musician Today podcast on iTunes, on Spotify, and Google Play, on CastBox FM, and on my website at verabormenko.com/podcast. So you don't miss out on anything that we share with you that these amazing artists bring to the table in our show. And you can also support us. You can help me make more music, and you can help me bring more guests to our show by becoming a Patreon on patreon.com/Vera Burmenko. So check out Allison's interview. She's an amazing artist. She's done some awesome projects that you will like. I know her producer and her collaborators, and everybody's just so amazing. So, yay! Why don't we start by doing one of the classic themes? This is the Dragonborn from Skyrim. thank you. This was a backing track by Moon Sun. They have quite a few subscribers, really nice soundtrack. Thank you for posting that. So I was playing along with somebody else's cover. Just, yeah. So actually something I wanted to talk to you guys about, the covering songs. So while I'm really happy to do something on the spur of the moment as much as I can, and if I can download a track from the internet or just play along with the YouTube, that's great. But generally, these things are very restricted in terms of copyright. So first of all, the song is not mine. The soundtrack is not mine. This is by Moon Sun. Originally, Skyrim was written by someone else. Obviously, you know this, but this backing track was from YouTube by Moon Sun channel. And thank you guys for this soundtrack. Just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge the artist, because there's a lot of copyright fraud going on, as in like you can just take someone's track and use it as your own, but you can't really do that. So for me to be able to do that, I do have to create my own, right? And that takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of hours at the studio with my producer, and it costs me anywhere between, close to $1,000 for a track, for just the backing track, even if we do it the same way that it's written. But you don't really want to do that, because if you create a soundtrack that sounds exactly like the original, you will be banned, you will be blocked, and you will be muted. So this has happened before, right? You guys remember a couple years ago when I was doing videos and I was playing along the soundtracks from other films and TV shows and games that I like, but they got blocked, they got muted on YouTube and on Facebook. So unfortunately, we cannot do that, because that's not a good way to do it. So when I covered Lindsey Stirling's Underground, first of all, we changed it. We made it our own. We changed it into our own style, because to me, that's like the only way to do the cover right, is to add something of yourself in it and to show a different perspective on the song, right? Change the style, change the beat, change the genre, right? Even though you're using the same theme, the same material basically, but change it up, play it a little differently. So that's just a few tips if you're creating a cover. But 2, you have to purchase a license. If you are legitimately a professional artist, thank you, Luke, thank you. So if you are an artist and you might get discovered through this cover song, you might get more than 1,000 views or so, you do have to purchase a license that qualifies for that. So I purchased a license for selling my CD, because it is on my CD. It's a bonus track for you guys, right? By the way, you can get my CD at veravormega.com/shop, which is where you have that bonus track on. Or if you become a Patreon, you get a download of this song free, right? On Lindsey Stirling's Underground. In our zombie style, in our gypsy violinist, zombie Viking warrior style. All of my favorite things put together into this one song. So yeah, and you want to do that. You want to be kind to the artist who created the original. So you want to purchase a license for the views and for the sales. If you plan to sell it, you have to purchase one license. If you plan to just put it on YouTube and have a certain number of views, you have to purchase a different kind of license. And of course, you have to update these things if you suddenly go viral and stuff like that. So yeah, where do you purchase license? There are different websites. I honestly don't remember where I did it, but I looked it up. I did my research. So it depends on where you are located. You might have to use one or the other. I don't remember what it's called, honestly. I'm sorry. I will write a comment. I'll check with my records and I'll write a comment to you, okay? There are quite a few sites that allow you to purchase licenses for, looking up the artist, looking up the original title, and you just click that button and you say, I want a license for this. So the license for the Lindsey Stirling cover for 150 CDs that I've made cost me anywhere like $60, maybe $30 with tax. I don't remember. So it was reasonable. But if you do, thank you. So thank you. Look, if you plan to have a lot of views and it might go viral on your channel, you have to consider that. So you have to purchase a license for every 1,000 views. It's a new license. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. Do your research. Again, it depends what you want to do with it. If you just want to do that to put it on your YouTube, that's one type of license. If you want to sell CDs, that's a different type of license. If you want to put it on something else, like into a project or a movie, that's a totally different license, right? So make sure that you do your research before you do that. Just in case you do get discovered through this and the artist notices and they want to see that you've done the work, that you have treated the track respectfully, right? And you mention them too, that this is by Lindsey Stirling, not by you, right? So I've done that just in case you guys are wondering. So usually it is a big work. It is big project. To create a cover is as much work as to create an original. Just so you guys know. And if you want me to create more quality covers and your request covers that will be turned into a soundtrack and into music video, then I do need your help through Patreon, patreon.com/Vera Bormenko, where you can become a patron and help me reach my first goal. My first goal will guarantee that I will make one cover song that is produced for you guys, for my Patreons. So we will vote, we will decide which one you want me to do, how you want me to do it, which style you'd like me to do it. So when you're a Patreon, you're part of my very close family. You're part of my production team, basically, right? Because you are supporting my production directly. And I'm gonna be so grateful. I will post videos for you, just for you, of our backing scenes, like behind the scenes of our process, even just my creative ideas as we go along when I'm writing a new song. I've been posting a lot of those to my current supporters. So thank you, all of the Patreons who have already been supporting me so far. Thank you guys. We are growing, steady, but we're growing. So yes, if I can get more amazing people like you to sign up and we could get to my monthly goal of contributions, I will be producing cover songs just for you guys with the videos, with a full-on production. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to do that. That's like one of my most favorite things to do. That and original music, of course. Yeah, so just putting it out there that creating a very good quality cover, it takes a lot of work. It's maybe even more work than making an original, just because with the original song, you don't have to worry about copyright. You don't have to worry about, appropriately producing it, instead of, it's your own piece. If it's your own piece, then you know what to do with it. But if it's someone else's, you have to treat it right. So make sure to do your research. And I'll check that site for you, Luke, okay? Yeah, was it Luke who asked me? It was William, yeah. So William, I will check, all right? I will look at my records and I'll let you know where I got it. I honestly don't remember, and I think it changes for me every time. Depends where I get a better deal, sort of thing. But also depends where you're located, what you're like, how many people will see it, and what you intend to do with this song, right? So here we go. Okay, moving on. A little bit of a tech talk there. Let me see, what else do we have for you today? We have, woohoo! Okay, so I do have a cool announcement. Hey, Tony, how you doing? So I do have a cool announcement. We are about to produce a music video for my Kolomyka Ukrainian song. What's a Kolomyka? In Ukrainian, if you translate it, it's a round dance. It's when people get together around the fire and celebrate the seasonal change. Recently, this past week, we had Ivana Kupala, which is a celebration of, also change and different seasons, So this was July 7th, 8th, I think 6th, 7th. Yeah, that's when actually we have this very cool tradition where we light, like, okay, those headpieces made of flowers? So we put candles on them and we let them flow with the water, and it's so beautiful, and it just flow until they fade out, basically. It's kind of like, if you think about it, it's very pagan, very Viking tradition to do. They do the same thing when they burn the dead, right? So we do that with our headpiece, and that symbolizes sort of like a rite of passage, change, embracing the new stage in our lives, kind of thing. So, and every flower in your headpiece does have a meaning. So, like, for example, I know when somebody passed away in your family recently, you would put a poppy seed flower. If you're just doing some kind of casual look, like, you would go with something more casual looking as well. So it all has a meaning. It's really cool. Lockdown album. I think Obsidian would be my lockdown album look. Right? It's going to take me a while, though. Give me like another year to get it out. Right now, I'm just writing my third or second song. Yeah, on that. It has been slow just because with lockdown, I do have a lot of other responsibilities. I'm teaching my students online every day. I'm, doing these shows. I'm trying to bring more artists into our podcast too. Those things are also important to me. So writing has been kind of, a little slow, and it's not because I don't have ideas. I have a ton of ideas. Like, I'm just like spitting ideas out every time that I'm awake. But it has been slow to actually get myself to sit down and produce a soundtrack and to create a mock-up track or a demo track and, work with a producer, because we've also had a lot of projects, the requests, like collaborations. Yeah, those have been busy. That was a lockdown thing, right? So a ton of collaborations during this lockdown. I honestly couldn't keep up. I had to say no to some really amazing people that I would like to do a collaboration with maybe later when I'm a little bit more free. So, yeah, all of that took my entire quarantine, believe it or not. So, last week I finally sat down to produce Obsidian, which is the second track on my album. And my upcoming album, also titled Obsidian. So, and I'm finally putting together the final touches on it, like my vocals and my lyrics. So, yeah, as you guys know, I'm an instrumentalist. So, lyrics are sort of secondary. Even though words inspire me, originally I would hear a word and I could write a whole song on it, right? But this one was more instrumental focused. And the words are kind of be like the last thing that I'm gonna tweak. And then this Tuesday is actually the first time I go back to my producer's studio because the quarantine has been a little bit lifting, sort of step by step. So I'm going to go see him in the studio, and we're going to start working on this so we can show you more. It's gonna be amazing. I can't wait. I've been holding this track in for the past 4 months, and it's finally coming out. So yes, thanks for asking. It's been a process. That's kind of the reason I feel a little exhausted, is because I didn't have time to work on my own projects, but I was mostly working for stuff for my schools, for my students, for my artists who I'm collaborating with. So, and it's been great too. I love doing that as well. But here's a lesson, guys. Make sure you still do stuff that matters to you, because if you don't do anything that matters to you, you will burn out, which is what I'm feeling this week. But it's gonna pass. Don't worry about it. So we'll get through this too. Okay. Meanwhile, let me show you Kalamika, right? So you don't forget what it was. And this is a song that we're going to make a Ukrainian themed video on. It's going to be filmed in traditional costumes, plus some rock and metal elements in it. So it's going to be amazing. We're just talking with the dance crew who are going to perform with me. It's going to be awesome. So I can't wait. This is going to be it. This is going to be the big project that I think is going to speak to a lot of people because I love it. All right. So here we go. Here's Kalamika. Here we go. says, I love it when you're dancing and playing and it shows talent. Oh, thank you. Well, it's mostly skill. Just like learning to play an instrument, learning to move your body in tune with it. It's a skill, right? It's just practice. I do work out for about an hour a day. Like I do exercise, I do Tai Chi, I do yoga, I do some Wushu, which is like breathing gymnastics. I stretch my body too. I do a bit of a contortion, which is, I'm not that flexible, but I can do like my legs behind my head sort of thing, right? So it just makes me feel good to keep in shape, and also because I see music as movement. Music is movement. You can't still stand still. I mean, it's really difficult for me to stand still. I've always known that since I studied, at school and played my classical music pieces and in orchestras and in everything. I'd be the one odd person doing this. Right? Even on Bach and Beethoven. And if I believe all these guys were alive today, they would do this. They would do what we are doing, right? They would do metal. They would do rock. They would write for film. They would just experience everything with movement, because music is movement. It picks you up and makes you go, right? I mean, what's the point of making music if you're going to stand like a soldier? Like, it's crazy. You have to move. To me, it's the one thing that unites us all. It's the movement, right? Through music. So, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Thank you. I'll be sure to do more of that. Unfortunately, you can't see my full body performances through this live stream because we don't have a lot of space. Like, this is how much space I have. I can probably do a couple splits, but it's not going to be as good. I would love to show you guys a much bigger perspective where you can see me dance full on with stuff that I do with my legs and, on the floor. I roll on the floor a lot too, so which is fun. I love doing that. So there are some videos on my YouTube that you can check out, that performances from live shows at the Taste of Russia Festival. If you type in Taste of Russia and my name, Vera Burmenko, on my YouTube, you'll find it. It's easy. I do covers by Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal. I do what's the Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to cover too. I do my original stuff. I do my 3-mix dance. I do my Kolomeyka there as well, because it was a Russian-Ukrainian festival. It's mostly a Russian festival, but there's a lot of Ukrainians in the area, so we kind of celebrate all together, like, why not? Yes, and I will do one more cover today. If you guys are curious about my spirit drum, I will be bringing it out soon. Maybe not today. Just today was kind of a little disorganized. I'm sorry about that. I love music from around the world, and that's all different kind of music. Yes, Luke, I totally agree. See, I played in a Persian band for 10 years. Some of my best friends from school are Persian, and I've played in the band with them of traditional Persian music for 10 years. I also gigged with my gypsy band for about 10 years too, and most of them overlapped. So I've discovered that a lot of cultural music doesn't matter where you come from. There's very similar idioms all over the world. Yeah, it's like we all came from one place. Which I strongly believe, by the way. I think that people started making folk music way a long time before we started understanding, anything to do with classical music. If anything, classical music, especially by people like Chopin and Brahms, they borrowed from folk music. They wrote dances. They wrote, all these polonaises and stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, Brahms definitely. Hungarian dances, come on. I mean, Bela Bartok was actually the first musicologist in the world. He went to record, in the world that we know it, obviously. I'm sure there were others, but he went to record songs of different tribes around the world, folk music performed by them. And he did it on the very first primitive kind of like wax recording device that I think he created himself. And yeah, it wasn't like the best recording ever, but they preserved pretty well. And he was able to then write his own like Hungarian dances and all that stuff, Romanian dances. Yeah. So Bela Bartok was really big on that. I love his work. So a lot of classical composers were inspired by folk, just like now a lot of pop artists, a lot of metal artists are inspired by folk music. I think folk music is where it all began, before we had instruments, before we knew how to build instruments. This is a question that I ask my students, and some of them get it right, but most don't, because when you ask, what was the very first instrument in the world? Like, piano? I'm like, no, that's a very advanced instrument. That was a much later. It's like, some the closest answers I got was a drum. I'm like, you're right, because we used our body to clap and drum, right? But it was actually our voice and our body, right? Before we had any instruments at all, we learned to produce sound by moving our body. So that's it. There you go. I think folk music is really the cradle of civilization. So I love it. Loving it because you're doing like a history lesson too. Oh, thank you, Luke. I'm so glad. I thought it might be boring for some people, but I'm glad you enjoy it. I think that's why I started my podcast, because I do have a lot to like discuss as well, like where my music came from and what inspired it. So for my first album, Iron Fiddle Saga, my first solo album, because I've done other collaborations before, but this is my first totally my album, right? For this one, I was inspired by the Game of Thrones and the stories behind it, especially the books. The books, not so much the show. I love the show too. I think it was very well done, graphically beautiful. But my first inspiration was the book, right? And in it, you get all these different fantasy kind of people, but they are based in reality. Like, for example, the Dothraki are kind of like a mix between Mongolian and Persian culture, and I can totally relate to. Yeah, I can hear that in the music. Then what else do we get? Like, well, obviously the England and all those royal families that were feuding over the throne. That's pretty obvious, right? So yeah, and all of that, the Irish, the Celtic, the Viking element in it. I love that. I love all these different cultures that actually existed at the same time, right? And hey, Jerry, thanks for watching. Gary, I hope I'm saying it right. So yes, and basically this is what inspires me. It's the folk music is very true. I'm myself Ukrainian. If you guys know, Ukrainian people in the past have been, big freedom lovers and fighters for freedom. Other countries try to tell us we're not a real country, but we are, because we're our own people. So we've built Ukraine basically based on our freedom. And if you look even further behind in history, Kiev Rus. I'm from Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine. But apparently Kiev was also the whole capital of the first city built by Slavs and the Viking travelers, who were not called themselves Vikings at the time. They called themselves, I think, Scandinavians or Danes or something, right? So these were the Scandinavian, conquerors, and Slavic people came together to build Kiev. And that was the first big city that basically started a whole civilization. Then there was Kiev Rus. So there was no Russia. There was no mention of Russia until way later, right? So Kiev Rus, my hometown, Kiev, is where the entire Slavic civilization came from. Yay! Thank you, guys. Oh, thank you, Gary. Jerry, I'm sorry if I'm not saying it right. Tony says, music inspires us to study the history and the foundations of... Yes, it does bring us together. Exactly. That's so funny. Back home, actually, when I did history classes at my school, and I was in grade 5 or 6 or something, the very first thing we'd learn, and my teachers would make us repeat that, is that we learn history so that we cannot repeat the mistakes of our forefathers. Think about that. I think something very helpful in today's political situation in the world. And I don't know how people don't know that, but for us, it was like the first thing you learned. You were not allowed to learn anything else until you got that straight. So we learn history so we do not repeat the mistakes of our forefathers. And that is so true. Like, it stayed with me. I had a very passionate history teacher at school. She was this small lady. She was really obsessed with Napoleon and all his conquests, and she would like jump on the desk and act out scenes from the history for us. I totally loved her class. Most people weren't listening, but I was like all in it. I was like, I love this. So yes, thank you, guys. Thank you. I'm so glad you're enjoying it. We should talk more. I guess so, eh? All right. Maybe I'll do a special podcast just so we can do like a little bit of a history breakdown of where my music came from, all the inspirations behind it. You can tell me your ideas, where you think it came from, just by listening, and I'll be happy to discuss with you if that's what actually happened to me, if that's what I actually got my inspiration from. That would be really cool. Brian says, very interesting. Music helped me get through some dark times. Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Brian. I hope you're feeling better now. That's definitely true. Like, if you ask any artist, when we write, it's mostly when we feel down, right? Because that's sort of like our way of recovering from it. Having music in our lives, especially during such turbulence times in our human history altogether, is the best outlet for sure. So writing a song about it just makes everything better. And I feel like, to me personally, all through my life, it has been not just a tool, but medium for self-realization and my growth. So when I create, I learn so much about myself that it makes me connect better with my deeper self and with my surroundings as well. So oftentimes I spend like alone just writing, but it doesn't mean that I'm lonely. I'm actually super happy to be alone and writing music. So yes, I would love that. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, guys, thanks for telling me what you like. It actually helps, because then it helps me see what I want to do in our next show. So maybe we'll do another podcast on just the history behind my album. That'd be pretty cool, because there's so many cultures that it touches on. Most of it is kind of, fantasy driven, because I would like it to be sort of like in shows like Game of Thrones, but it's also very reality rooted. So I like to, I don't like the fluff. I like to get straight to the root, to the origin of things. So I think it shows in my music. I hope it does. If it doesn't, let me know if there's something I can do to make it better. So I like to get straight to the root. And this coming album will be very inspired by my own culture, Ukrainian traditions, and the beautiful, also mysterious and spooky element of it as well. So if it makes your skin crawl, that means I've done my job. But it will also be like, there will be different sides to it, but I want it to be a little darker than my first album, just so it shows the depth and the pain and the experience of my people as somebody who fought for freedom for a long, long time. All right, so here we go. Why don't we end with something real fun? Okay. Can you do Cats in the Cradle? That's so. Oh, I'll check it out. I don't think I know it. Maybe I've heard it, but I don't know the name. So let me check that out. Maybe I can do it for next week. And again, if it's gonna be a copyright issue, I apologize. There's not much I can do unless I produce the tracks. So let me check that out for next week. Meanwhile, here is Horseman. Tony, here we go. Thank you, Luke. Thank you. So, yes, I love this song. This was actually inspired very closely by Mongolian throat singing. And you hear a sample of it at the beginning. So, no, I don't know how to do it. But I know some people who are amazing at it. So, hopefully for next album, we'll be able to get an actual singer to do the throat singing for us. That would be so fantastic. So, this drone singing you hear at the beginning and at the end, that's it. That's it. There's different types. When I studied at York University, we had a TA in my classes who actually, Alex Glenfield, he is like viral for that on YouTube right now. Check him out, Alex Glenfield, different throat singing styles. He will show you so many. And he actually showed us how to do it. So like I understand the foundation of it, but it's something you have to practice for a lifetime. Hey Tony, that's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's one of my favorites too. I love it. I was lucky to premiere it on Frank D'Angelo's show, Being Frank, and that was a few months ago before quarantine. He was so nice. The whole team and crew are just so nice. It was really fun being there. Hope to come back someday with a new release possibly. So yeah, thank you Frank for having me, and hope everybody's doing during quarantine well and staying healthy and making music. So to me, everything I'm doing for my self-realization, but I also want to share it with you guys so you too can see that you can find joy in what you do and you don't need to listen to the outside voices. Like, it's a good thing to consider what people are saying, but don't let that guide you. So my biggest struggle with my career has been, balancing between the things that I truly love myself and trying to please my audience. So both are good, but you got to be able to also be guided by your own voice, right? So, which is something I ask of every artist that I interview, and they've all said it. If you want to check out Allison's Advice, go for it. Click the link below from our interview, and she will tell you that finding your voice is very important. Don't let the haters tell you what you shouldn't do, right? So don't let those other people discourage you who don't understand what you do or just want to make you feel bad. Don't let that get to you, because what you do is important. Imagine that what you are doing right now could change someone's life across the world, like over the oceans, and somebody there might be actually looking for the kind of music or the kind of message that you have to send, and they would be so happy to find you and to connect with you that you would actually be doing good for them, and not just for you, for other people in the world. So I think that's why we are here. That's why we're all alive, is to connect and learn through the experience, right? Which is where social media is so helpful. So thank you guys. I hope you have an amazing week. I do have one small sneak peek announcement for you. Is soon I'm going to be posting a cover of my Witcher song. You know that show Witcher? God, what is it called again? Toss a coin to your Witcher. That one. So yes, very soon it's coming. We made this right before quarantine, and the funny thing is we shot it on green screen because we thought that would be a cool video to do. We wanted to experiment with it. So it's coming. I can't tell you if it's going to be this week or next week, but stay tuned. So I will send an email as soon as it does. And if you're on my YouTube, click the bell to be notified, right? Then you'll get notified as soon as it premieres. So I like to premiere my videos on YouTube because I think it's an easier way to do it. So all of my produced videos are on YouTube. So go check it out. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe, please. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers so I can start, becoming a YouTube patron. And then, eventually monetize on the videos that get more views, which it's a long journey, I know, but we have to get started somewhere. So let's do it, guys. Let me read this awesome message from Tony. Turn off the news and focus on your music and your own voice. Meditation and yoga helps. What are you doing? Yes, totally agree, Tony. What you are doing can totally change the world. And you know how people say, oh, one person can't. But yes, you can, because when you connect with those who believe in the same thing, you become a powerful force. You build your tribe, and you find your tribe by your vibe. So keep vibing, keep sending out those vibes and sharing. And don't be afraid. Oftentimes my students tell me like, oh, I feel like that performance was not perfect. I should not share it. I said, of course you should. Have you heard of Hillary Hunt's 100 Days of Practice hashtag? She literally inspires people to share the imperfect performances, the imperfect tries, attempts, and just, run-throughs a piece or whatever you're practicing. so that you do not feel like you have to be perfect, because nobody is. Artists who feel and look perfect are working at it daily, and they make more mistakes than anyone. It's just they've made more mistakes. They've made enough mistakes to know what not to do. But making mistakes is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Besides, what's a mistake? Define mistake. I've been playing as a gypsy metal violinist my whole life, even when I studied classical music. Later, when I turned 25, 28, maybe, I think I understood Bach and Mozart way better than I was doing that when I was at school. And it sinks in. It does. And I'm like, oh yeah, now I get it. Now I get it, because that's the instrument they had, because that's the technique they did back then. And now it sinks in. But at the same time, I feel like there is no limit absolutely to what you can do. And if those guys were here today, they would tell you the same thing. They would do cinematic warrior themed gypsy metal and they would love it. They would write stuff for film. They would produce ads. I guarantee you they would do the same thing, because the people who we know of today were ahead of their time back then. And they were often despised by some because they were like so out of the box. So we're going through exactly the same steps. It's not new. Nothing is new. There's nothing new under the sun. Something we talked about with Matt Bell in our interview in my podcast. Sign up for the podcast on iTunes, Musician Today podcast. Get awesome advice from people. Some of them are like me. Some of them way above my level of their career and influence, and they're just so amazing. So I love it that they're here, to help us grow and connect and evolve. So don't ever feel like you need to hide because it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Everything you do is always going to feel like you need to change it, improve it, and you could have done it better. But that's life, right? We gotta live. We gotta do stuff. And I like an advice from a business entrepreneur, Grace Lever. She said, done better than perfect. Get it done. Put your message out there. And then you'll see how much easier it will be to do the next and the next and the next. So, whew. Okay, Gerardo. Hey, how are you? Ciao, mia amica. Hey, ciao. Hope you're all doing well. Soon we'll come out of the quarantine. I know soon we'll be able to see everybody and do in-person concerts. Meanwhile, stay tuned. Log in every Sunday, 12 o'clock. I'll try not to be late. And next week, I guess, is going to be my special birthday episode, so we can talk a bit about my music. I'll play you some more songs. I'll do a cover from my new compositions that I'm writing right now. So yay, can't wait. Don't forget also to check my recent cover of Hum Bolega by Gulab Janams. My friend in Pakistan, Sarmad, has put together this amazing band and this awesome project, which, by the way, serendipitously predicted the events of COVID-19 back then in 2018 or 2016 when he wrote the song. It's so funny, but it's worked. It works for today's situation. So check that out. All of that is on my YouTube. Basically, if you follow me on YouTube or iTunes, if you like to listen more than watch, then iTunes is the best thing. Go to Musician Today podcast, and it's me. You'll find me there in a red dress and like with a violin and stuff. So yeah, and if you like to watch, then subscribe on YouTube, Vera Bomenko on YouTube. The links are below. Check out my recent episode with Alyson Montez. She's so great, and she's given great advice. Her music is epic. You guys are gonna love it. So have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you soon.